The alarm pierced through the dormitory levels of the Stellar Combat Institute like a blade through silence. Marcus Chun's eyes snapped open, his human reflexes responding with a speed that years of disciplined training had honed to near perfection. Around him, the massive academy hummed with the movement of 1,000 different species, each beginning their day according to their biological imperatives. Marcus sat up on his narrow bunk, running a hand through his dark hair as he stared out the viewport at the swirling nebula beyond. 3 months he'd been here, 3 months of diplomatic protocol classes and interspecies communication seminars. It wasn't glamorous, but it was safe, predictable, and exactly what he'd signed up for when he'd left Earth. Student designation: Marcus Chun, Terran origin. The room's I announced in its neutral tones. Report to Administrator Valdres immediately. Class reassignment pending. Marcus frowned, pulling on his academy uniform, a simple gray jumpsuit that did nothing to distinguish him from the maintenance crew. Reassignment? He'd specifically requested diplomatic studies. His test scores were excellent, his conduct exemplary. What could possibly warrant a change? The administrative sector buzzed with activity as beings of every conceivable shape and size hurried about their business. Marcus had grown accustomed to the curious stares his human appearance drew: pale skin, brown eyes, and an unremarkable build that marked him as belonging to one of the galaxy's more fragile species. He'd learned to smile through the attention, a gentle expression that seemed to put others at ease. Instructor Valdres's office overlooked the academy's central courtyard, where advanced students practiced combat techniques that defied several laws of physics. The Cathari instructor herself was an imposing figure nearly 7 feet tall, with 4 arms and skin that shifted from deep blue to silver, depending on her mood. Currently, it was a stormy gray. "Ah, Marcus," she said without looking up from her holographic displays. "Sit down. We need to discuss your future here at the academy." Marcus settled into the chair across from her desk, maintaining his customary calm smile. "Is there a problem with my performance, instructor?" "Quite the opposite." Valdres finally looked at him, her large black eyes reflecting the data streams around them. "Your aptitude tests have been ... interesting, particularly your scores in tactical analysis and psychological profiling." "I enjoy understanding how others think," Marcus replied honestly. "It seemed relevant to diplomacy." "Indeed. Which is why I find your original application curious." She manipulated the hologram, bringing up his file. "Top percentile in strategic thinking, combat psychology, and crisis management. Yet you requested placement in our most basic diplomatic program." Marcus's smile never wavered, though something flickered in his eyes. "I believe understanding leads to peace, instructor. I'm not interested in conflict." "That's unfortunate," Valdres said, her skin shifting to a determined silver, "because conflict has found you. Effective immediately, you're being transferred to Alpha Squadron." The words hung in the air like a death sentence. Alpha Squadron was legendary throughout the Academy, an elite unit composed entirely of the galaxy's most dangerous female warriors. They were whispered about in the corridors, feared even by senior students from species that considered themselves apex predators. "I don't understand," Marcus said carefully. "Alpha Squadron doesn't accept male students. It's been that way since the Academy's founding. Command level override," Valdres explained, displaying the official seal. "The decision comes from strategic operations. You report to Combat Hall 7 in 20 minutes. Marcus stood slowly, his mind racing through possibilities. Someone wanted him in Alpha Squadron specifically. But why? And who had the authority to override centuries of tradition? "Instructor," he said, "may I ask who authorized this transfer?" Valdres's skin flickered to a warning shade of deep purple. "That information is classified. I suggest you focus on survival instead of curiosity, Marcus. Alpha Squadron doesn't coddle its members, regardless of species or gender. as Marcus made his way through the Academy's labyrinthine corridors toward Combat Hall 7. He couldn't shake the feeling that invisible forces were moving around him. Students pressed themselves against the walls as he passed, word of his assignment having spread with the supernatural speed that gossip achieved in closed communities. He paused outside the massive doors to Combat Hall 7, taking a deep breath. Through the reinforced transparent aluminum, he could see them 23 beings that represented the absolute pinnacle of their respective species' combat evolution. Some possessed natural armor that could deflect energy weapons. Others moved with a fluid grace that spoke of deadly precision. A few appeared almost humanoid, which Marcus knew often meant they possessed the most dangerous abilities of all. They were all stunningly beautiful in their own unique ways. From the midnight blue skin of what appeared to be a nocturnal shadow weaver to the crystalline features of an ice world native. But their beauty was that of a perfect weapon, elegant, mesmerizing, and absolutely lethal. The door scanner recognized his biosignature and hissed open. 23 pairs of eyes, some glowing, others reflecting light in impossible ways, turned to regard him with expressions ranging from surprise to disdain to something that might have been hunger. At the front of the hall stood Instructor Valdris, having somehow arrived ahead of him through means he didn't question. Beside her was the most striking being Marcus had ever seen, a tall woman with skin like polished obsidian and hair that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. When she moved, shadows moved with her in ways that defied natural law. Alpha Squadron, Valdris announced, her skin now a neutral blue. Meet your new squadron member. This is a mistake, came a voice like velvet over steel. The Shadow Weaver stepped forward, and Marcus caught the subtle shift in her posture that marked her as the squadron's unofficial leader. Alpha Squadron has standards. We don't accept charity cases. Zara Nightfall, Valdris said sharply, using the student's full name as a warning. The assignment comes from strategic operations. Question it at your own risk. Zara's dark eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that would have made most beings step backward. Instead, Marcus smiled, not the practiced diplomatic expression he usually wore, but something warmer, more genuine. Good morning, he said, his voice carrying clearly through the hall despite its gentle tone. I'm Marcus. I know this is unusual, and I appreciate that my presence here might be unwelcome, but I'm committed to earning my place among you. The hall fell silent except for the hum of the Academy's life support systems. Marcus walked to the only empty seat predictably located in the center of the formation, surrounded on all sides by potential threats. As he settled into his chair and placed his simple bag on the desk, every warrior in the room watched his movements with predatory focus. Zara Nightfall remained standing, shadows writhing around her feet like living things. Human, she said, her voice carrying a weight of authority that went beyond her apparent age. Do you understand what Alpha Squadron represents? The finest warriors in the galaxy, Marcus replied without hesitation, meeting her gaze steadily. Each of you represents the apex of your species' evolutionary advantages. You're trained to think, fight, and kill with precision that borders on artistry. And yet you smile, Zara observed, moving closer to him with steps that made no sound. Why? Marcus considered the question seriously before answering. Because I'm exactly where I need to be. Something flickered across Zara's features, too quick to identify, but it might have been intrigue. Around the hall, other students exchanged glances that ranged from confusion to anticipation. The morning's first lesson was about to begin, but everyone present understood that the real education would come from watching how the human survived his first day among the galaxy's most dangerous women. As Instructor Valdris began the day's tactical briefing, Marcus felt the weight of 23 gazes upon him. Each stare carried its own message, challenge, threat, or curiosity. But it was Zara's gaze that held his attention, dark eyes that seemed to look straight through him to something hidden beneath. He maintained his smile, folded his hands on his desk, and prepared for whatever test would come first. In his heart, he knew that his real mission, the one that had brought him across half the galaxy to this academy, was just beginning. The first combat trial came during what should have been Marcus's third day of routine tactical exercises. Instead, he found himself standing in the Academy's primary training arena, a vast chamber capable of simulating any environment in the known galaxy. Around him, Alpha Squadron prepared for what Instructor Valdris had ominously termed adaptive combat assessment. "Rules are simple," Valdris announced, her Cathari skin shifting to an anticipatory gold. "Survive the scenario. Protect your assigned objective. Failure results in remedial training." Or medical bay, Marcus adjusted the lightweight combat suit he'd been issued, noting how it felt like wearing paper compared to the advanced armor his squadmates wore. Beside him, Zara Nightfall secured her own gear with movements so fluid they seemed choreographed. Her shadows danced around her like eager pets, responding to emotions Marcus was beginning to learn to read. "Nervous, human?" asked a melodious voice tinged with frost. Marcus turned to see Kira Frostborn approaching, her crystalline blue skin literally sparkling in the arena's lights. Ice crystals formed and dissolved around her fingertips as she spoke, an unconscious display of her species' elemental mastery. "Should I be?" Marcus replied with his characteristic smile. "Though I admit I'm curious about the scenario parameters." Kira laughed, a sound like wind chimes in a winter storm. "Curiosity killed more than cats, as you humans say. An Alpha Squadron, it usually kills the curious. But satisfaction brought them back." Marcus finished the quote, earning a surprised look from the Ice Warrior. "I've always preferred the complete version." Before Kira could respond, the arena's environment shifted around them. The sterile training space transformed into a dense urban battlefield, crumbling buildings, smoke-filled streets, and the distant sound of weapons fire. The scenario was brutally realistic, complete with the acrid smell of burning structures and the weight of a hostile atmosphere. "Teams of 4. Valdris's voice echoed from hidden speakers. "Objective: retrieve the data core from the central tower. Opposition: automated defenses and environmental hazards. Begin." Marcus found himself partnered with Zara, Kira, and a new-face Raven Stormheart, whose silver hair crackled with barely contained electrical energy. The Tempest Warrior's violet eyes held the restless energy of a brewing storm, and Marcus could feel the static in the air around her. "Strategy?" Zara asked, though her tone suggested she was merely being polite. Her shadows had already begun scouting the immediate area, flowing through cracks and crevices like liquid darkness. "Information first," Marcus suggested, studying the tactical display on his wrist unit. "Raven, can you detect the electronic signatures of the defenses?" "Kira, thermal imaging through those building materials?" "Zara ... double quotes." He paused, meeting her dark eyes. "Your shadows can map interior spaces without triggering motion sensors, can't they?" The three warriors exchanged glances. Raven was the first to respond, her voice carrying the low rumble of distant thunder. "You know our capabilities better than I expected, human." "I study my teammates," Marcus replied simply. "We're stronger together than apart." Zara's expression shifted almost imperceptibly surprise. "Perhaps, or something deeper. Your tactical analysis suggests advanced training, more than diplomatic corps provides." "I'm a quick learner," Marcus deflected, but he could see Zara filing the information away for later consideration. They began their approach to the central tower, moving through the ruined streets with a coordination that surprised even Marcus. Raven used controlled electrical bursts to disable automated sentries, while Kira created ice barriers to deflect incoming fire. Zara's shadows flowed ahead of them, providing real-time intelligence about enemy positions. Marcus found himself falling naturally, into the role of tactical coordinator, calling out movements and adjustments with an ease that spoke of extensive combat experience. When a hidden turret nearly caught Kira in crossfire, it was Marcus who spotted the reflection of its targeting laser and called the warning that saved her life. "Behind the structural pillar, now!" he shouted, and Kira dove for cover just as energy bolts seared through the space where she'd been standing. "How did you see that?" Kira demanded breathlessly, ice crystals forming around her from the adrenaline surge. "Light patterns," Marcus explained, "already scanning for the next threat. Everything reflects differently. You learn to read the variations." Zara moved closer to him, close enough that he could smell something like midnight jasmine mixed with ozone. "Where does a diplomatic student learn to read battlefield optics?" Their eyes met, and Marcus felt something electric pass between them that had nothing to do with Raiden's abilities. "Survival teaches many lessons," he said quietly. Moment was broken by the emergence of the scenario's primary challenge, a massive combat android that rose from the central tower's base like a mechanical giant. Its weapon systems came online with an ominous hum that made the air itself vibrate. Class 7 Guardian. Raven identified, her expression grim. "Those things have shields that can turn aside starship weapons." "Then we don't fight it," Marcus said, studying the android's movement patterns. "We outthink it." "Explain," Zara commanded, shadows swirling with increased intensity around her. Marcus pointed to the building's structural supports. "Kira, how much of that building can you freeze fracture simultaneously? And Raven, what happens when frozen metal conducts a massive electrical surge?" Understanding dawned in their eyes. "The building comes down," Kira breathed. "On top of our objective," Raven added with growing excitement, "which the Guardian is programmed to protect," Zara finished, a smile ghosting across her lips. "It will position itself to shield the tower and get crushed in the process," Marcus concluded. Teamwork over firepower. The plan worked flawlessly. Kira flash froze the building's support structures while Raven channeled a controlled lightning strike through the supercooled metal. The resulting structural failure brought down half the building in a controlled collapse that buried the Guardian under tons of rubble while leaving the central tower accessible. As they retrieved the data core from the tower's apex, Zara found herself studying Marcus with new interest. His tactical thinking was sophisticated, his battlefield awareness exceptional, and his leadership natural, but unassuming. None of these qualities belonged to a simple diplomatic student. "Impressive work, human," came a new voice from behind them. They turned to see Seraphina Blazewing approaching, her phoenix-like wings folding against her back as she landed gracefully on the tower's platform. The fire warrior's golden skin seemed to glow from within, and her amber eyes held an intensity that matched her flame-based abilities. "Team effort," Marcus deflected, but Seraphina shook her head. "I was monitoring from the observation deck," she said. "Your tactical coordination was ... unexpected. Most males of any species tend toward direct confrontation rather than collaborative strategy. Maybe you haven't met the right males," Marcus replied with gentle humor. Seraphine's laugh was like the crackling of a warm hearth. "Perhaps not. You're certainly different from what I expected." The scenario ended, and the urban battlefield dissolved back into the sterile training arena. As the team made their way to the debriefing area, Zara fell into step beside Marcus. "You fought well," she said, her voice neutral, but her shadows betraying a subtle agitation. "Thank you," Marcus replied. "You all made it easy." Trust is a powerful force multiplier. Trust. Zara repeated the word as if tasting something foreign. "Alpha Squadron doesn't trust easily, human. We've learned that others often disappoint." "Then I'll try not to disappoint," Marcus said simply. They walked in comfortable silence for a moment before Zara spoke again. "Your combat knowledge is extensive for someone with no military record." Marcus's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. "Life has a way of teaching survival skills. Indeed it does. Zara's dark eyes studied his profile. Though some lessons leave deeper marks than others, there was something in her tone that made Marcus look at her more carefully. Behind the warrior's composure, he glimpsed something vulnerable, old pain, perhaps, or recognition of a kindred spirit. Experience shapes us all, he agreed quietly. The question is whether we let it make us stronger or let it break us. And which has it done for you? Zara asked. Marcus considered the question as they reached the debriefing area. Around them, other Alpha Squadron members were discussing the day's exercises, their voices creating a backdrop of controlled chaos. But in their small bubble of conversation, there was an intimacy that surprised them both. Ask me again when I know the answer, Marcus finally replied. Zara nodded, something like understanding passing between them. Fair enough, Marcus-chun, but know this Alpha Squadron protects its own. Prove yourself worthy of that protection, and you'll have allies who would follow you into the void itself. And if I prove unworthy? Zara's smile was sharp as a blade and twice as beautiful. Then you'll discover why Alpha Squadron has never lost a member to enemy action. As they entered the debriefing area, Marcus felt the weight of 23 gazes upon him once again. But now there was something different in those looks. Not acceptance, perhaps, but acknowledgement. He had fought beside them and proven himself capable. It was a first step, nothing more, but in Alpha Squadron, first steps were often the difference between life and death. Instructor Valdres called for attention, her skin now showing satisfaction in warm gold tones. Today's exercise revealed significant tactical innovation from Team 7. Marcus, your strategic coordination shows promise. Thank you, Instructor, Marcus replied, but his attention was drawn to Zara, who was watching him with an expression he couldn't quite read. After the debriefing, as the squadron dispersed to their various evening activities, Zara approached him once more. Walk with me, she said, not a request, but not quite a command either. They made their way to one of the Academy's observation decks, where massive viewports offered a panoramic view of the surrounding nebula. The swirling colors of cosmic gas and stellar formation painted the darkness in shades of purple, gold, and deep blue. Beautiful, Marcus commented, gazing out at the stellar nursery beyond. Dangerous, Zara corrected. That nebula is filled with gravitational anomalies and radiation storms. Beauty and danger often travel together. Speaking from experience? Marcus asked. Zara's reflection in the viewport showed a fleeting vulnerability. My homeworld orbited a star much like those being born out there. The radiation shaped my people, gave us our abilities. It also killed most of us before we learned to adapt. I'm sorry, Marcus said, and the sincerity in his voice made Zara turn to look at him directly. You speak as if you understand loss, she observed. Marcus's smile faltered for the first time since arriving at the Academy. Everyone understands loss, Zara. The question is what we do with it. They stood in comfortable silence, watching the cosmic dance beyond the viewport. Something was building between them, attraction, certainly, but also recognition. Two souls who had been shaped by forces beyond their control, finding unexpected kinship in the vastness of space. Marcus, Zara said finally, why are you really here? And don't tell me you're just a diplomatic student. I've fought alongside enough warriors to recognize one when I see him. Marcus met her gaze in their reflection, dark eyes searching his own. The moment stretched between them, heavy with unspoken possibilities. Some truths, he said quietly, require trust to share safely. Zara nodded slowly, her shadows settling around her feet like loyal guardians. Then perhaps we should work on building that trust. I'd like that, Marcus replied, and for the first time since arriving at the Academy, his smile reached his eyes completely. As they made their way back through the Academy's corridors, neither of them noticed the figure watching from the shadows or the small recording device that had captured their entire conversation. The emergency klaxon that woke Alpha Squadron at 030 hours was unlike anything Marcus had heard in his weeks at the Academy. This wasn't a drill alarm or a class notification. This was the real thing, carrying undertones of genuine crisis that made his trained instincts snap to full alert. All Alpha Squadron members report to Combat Bay Alpha. Immediately, Instructor Valdris's voice crackled through the comm system. This is not a simulation. Repeat, this is not a simulation. Marcus was dressed and moving before his roommate, a crystalline being from the Prism Worlds, had even registered the alarm. In the corridors, he encountered other squadron members, all displaying the controlled urgency that marked elite warriors responding to genuine threat. Zara appeared beside him as if materializing from the shadows themselves, her dark hair bound back in a warrior's knot, and her combat suit seeming to absorb the corridor's lighting. Over the past 2 weeks, she had become his most frequent training partner, their tactical synchronization improving with each exercise. "Any idea what this is about?" she asked, matching his pace effortlessly. "Nothing good happens at this hour," Marcus replied, noting how her shadows seemed more agitated than usual. "Your abilities are responding to stress." "What are they telling you?" Zara glanced at him with surprise. Most beings couldn't read the subtle emotional indicators of her shadow manipulation. Danger. Something approaching from beyond the Academy's sensor perimeter. Combat Bay Alpha buzzed with activity as the entire squadron assembled. Instructor Valdris stood before a massive holographic display showing the Academy's position relative to the surrounding star system. Her Cathari skin had shifted to a deep crimson, the color of extreme concern. 18 minutes ago, she began without preamble. Long-range sensors detected an unidentified vessel on approach vector to the Academy. The ship is broadcasting no identification codes and has ignored all hail attempts. The hologram zoomed in to show a sleek, predatory craft unlike any design in the standard databases. Its hull seemed to bend light around it, making it difficult to focus on directly. Visual analysis suggests stealth technology beyond current galactic standards. Valdris continued. The vessel's approach pattern indicates hostile intent. All regular combat squadrons are engaged in war games in the outer system. Alpha Squadron is the Academy's primary defense. Luna Crescent Moon, a shapeshifter whose silver hair reflected her lunar heritage, raised her hand. "What about Academy security forces?" "Compromised," Valdris replied grimly. "Someone transmitted security protocols to the approaching vessel. They know our defensive patterns, patrol schedules, and weapon placements." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the bay's temperature. An inside job. Someone at the Academy had betrayed them to whatever was approaching in that impossible ship. "Mission parameters," Valdris announced, "are search and destroy. You will board the vessel, eliminate the threat, and recover any intelligence regarding the security breach. Teams of 2, standard infiltration protocol." As the squadron began organizing into pairs, Marcus found Zara beside him, without either of them having spoken. It was natural now, this partnership that had developed through weeks of training together. "Partners?" she asked, though her tone suggested the question was merely a formality. "Always," Marcus replied, earning a slight smile that transformed her usually serious expression. They were equipped with standard assault gear energy weapons, personal shields, and emergency life support systems. But as they prepared to board the assault shuttle, Vera Ironwell approached them. The cybernetic-enhanced warrior from the Forge Worlds moved with mechanical precision, half her body replaced with advanced technology that gleamed under the bay's lights. "Human," she said, her voice carrying the subtle harmonics of integrated vocal processors. "Your tactical analysis during training has been ... adequate, but real combat is different. Try not to get Zara killed." "I'll do my best," Marcus replied calmly. But Zara stepped between them. "Vera," she said, shadows writhing around her feet, Marcus has proven himself. Question my judgment again, and we'll discuss it personally. The cybernetic warrior's optical implants flared briefly, and she nodded with something approaching respect. Understood, Squadron Leader. Squadron Leader? Marcus glanced at Zara with new understanding. He'd suspected she held unofficial authority, but this confirmed it. Alpha Squadron looked to her for leadership, which explained why his integration had been so crucial to his acceptance. The shuttle ride, too. Intercept the unknown vessel was tense. Through the viewports, Marcus could see the strange ship more clearly. It was beautiful in the way that perfect predators were beautiful, all elegant lines and hidden menace. Whatever technology created its light-bending properties was beyond anything in his considerable database of galactic military hardware. Tessa, Zara called to their pilot. Can you get us close without triggering their defensive systems? Tessa Windrider's wing-like appendages twitched with concentration as she adjusted their approach. The aerial combat specialist from the Wind Dancer clan was one of the few beings who could pilot in three-dimensional space as naturally as others walked. Their sensors are focused forward, toward the academy, she reported. I can bring us in through their sensor shadow, but we'll have maybe 30 seconds before they detect the boarding tubes. 30 seconds is enough, Marcus said, studying the ship's design on his tactical display. Zara, look at the hull configuration. Those aren't random design elements. They're functional. The ship's entire structure is designed around stealth approach and rapid withdrawal. Hit and run. Zara agreed, her tactical mind following his analysis. Which means whatever they're after, they plan to grab it and disappear. Or whoever, Marcus added quietly, a suspicion forming in his mind. The boarding was textbook perfect. Tessa brought them in through the unknown vessel's sensor blind spot, and the cutting beams opened their entry point with surgical precision. Marcus and Zara were first through, moving with the fluid coordination they'd developed during weeks of training. Together, the ship's interior was as alien as its exterior corridors that curved in impossible directions. Lighting that seemed to come from the walls themselves, and an atmosphere that carried scents Marcus couldn't identify. But it was the silence that disturbed him most. A ship this size should have had crew sounds, mechanical noise, something to indicate life aboard. It's empty, Zara whispered, her shadows flowing ahead of them to scout. No heat signatures, no movement, nothing. Not empty, Marcus corrected, studying his scanner readings. Automated. The entire ship is one massive artificial intelligence. They made their way deeper into the vessel, following corridor after corridor toward what his tactical analysis suggested would be the command center. Behind them, other Alpha Squadron teams were spreading throughout the ship, but Marcus had the growing certainty that they were moving into a carefully prepared trap. Zara, he said quietly, as they approached what appeared to be the ship's central chamber. I need to tell you something. About why I'm really here. She stopped, turning to face him in the strange shifting light of the alien corridor. Now, especially now, Marcus met her dark eyes, seeing his reflection in their depths. I'm not just a diplomatic student who got transferred. I'm here looking for someone. My sister. Zara's expression didn't change, but her shadows stilled completely. A sign he'd learned meant she was processing significant information. Alana Chun, he continued. She was a student here 3 years ago. Advanced tactical programs. Then she disappeared during a training mission in the Outer Rim. The Academy reported her as killed in action, but I never believed it. Because? Zara prompted, though her tone suggested she already knew the answer. Because Elena is the most capable person I've ever known. If she died, it wasn't in some training accident. Marcus's voice carried pain he'd kept buried for years. Someone took her, and I think they're connected to whoever sent this ship. The central chamber opened before them, like a flower blooming in reverse petals of strange metal folding back to reveal a space that defied geometry. At the center stood a figure Marcus recognized from intelligence briefings he wasn't supposed to have access to. Iris Dreamwalker, Zara breathed, naming the reality bending illusionist who stood calmly in the chamber's heart. But Marcus was staring at the figure beside her, young woman with dark hair and brown eyes that mirrored his own. Elena, his sister, alive, armed, and standing beside one of the galaxy's most wanted criminals. "Hello, little brother," Elena said, her voice carrying none of the warmth he remembered. "You always were too persistent for your own good." The trap closed around them with devastating efficiency. The chamber's walls shifted, cutting off their retreat, while energy barriers sprang up to separate Marcus and Zara from their backup. In seconds, they were isolated with two of the most dangerous individuals in known space. "Elena," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his heart, "what have they done to you?" "Done to me?" Elena laughed, a sound like breaking crystal. "They've freed me, Marcus. Freed me from the Academy's limitations, from the constraints of lesser thinking. Iris showed me possibilities beyond imagination." Iris Dreamwalker smiled, reality rippling around her like water disturbed by a stone. "Your sister is quite gifted, Marcus Chun. Her tactical abilities, combined with my reality manipulation, make for interesting possibilities." "Let him go," Zara said, shadows erupting around her like living darkness. "Your quarrel is with the Academy, not with him." "On the contrary," Iris replied, "Marcus is exactly why we're here. Elena has been most insistent about retrieving her brother before our operations expand." "Operations?" Marcus asked, pieces of a larger puzzle beginning to form in his mind. Elena stepped forward, and Marcus could see the changes in her, the same tactical awareness he possessed, but twisted somehow, refined into something colder. "The Academy is a lie, Marcus. They don't train diplomats and warriors. They create weapons for a war most of the galaxy doesn't even know is coming. And you're fighting that by becoming a weapon yourself?" Marcus challenged. "I'm becoming something more," Elena replied. "Something beyond their control. And now you're going to join us, willingly or otherwise." The battle that erupted in the chamber was like nothing Marcus had ever experienced. Iris Dreamwalker bent reality itself, making the floor shift beneath their feet, while walls became permeable one moment and solid the next. Elena moved with lethal precision, her combat abilities enhanced by training Marcus didn't recognize. But it was Zara who proved to be their salvation. Her shadows weren't just darkness. They were absence itself, voids in reality that even Iris's manipulation couldn't touch. While Marcus used his tactical abilities to predict and counter Elena's attacks, Zara created pockets of absolute darkness that disrupted Iris's reality bending. "You don't understand," Elena called out during a brief lull in the fighting. "The Academy isn't what you think it is. They're preparing for something, Marcus. Something that will reshape the galaxy." "Then help me understand," Marcus replied, dodging an attack while trying to reach his sister. "But not like this. Not by becoming the enemy." For a moment, Elena hesitated, and Marcus saw a flicker of the sister he remembered. But then Iris spoke a word in a language it hurt to hear, and Elena's expression hardened again. The resolution came suddenly. Tessa managed to breach the chamber's defenses, bringing the full weight of Alpha Squadron to bear on the impossible ship. Faced with overwhelming odds, Iris activated some kind of emergency protocol that began dissolving the vessel around them. "This isn't over, little brother," Elena called as reality twisted around her and Iris. "Find me when you're ready to hear the truth." And then they were gone, leaving Marcus and Zara floating in empty space, held only by their emergency life support while the Academy's rescue shuttles raced toward them. Later, in the medical bay where they were recovering from exposure to whatever exotic energies had powered the alien ship, Zara sat beside Marcus's bed. The silence stretched between them, heavy with unasked questions. "Your sister," she finally said. "Is alive?" Marcus finished, And apparently everything I thought I knew about why I'm here is wrong. Zara's hand found his, warm fingers intertwining with his own. Whatever's really going on, whatever your sister meant about the academy, we'll figure it out together. Marcus turned to look at her, seeing something in her dark eyes that made his heart race for reasons that had nothing to do with recent combat. Together? Together, Zara confirmed, leaning closer until he could smell that intoxicating scent of midnight jasmine and ozone. You're not alone in this, Marcus-chun. Not anymore. When she kissed him, it was gentle at first, tentative, like a question being asked. But when Marcus responded, pulling her closer with his free hand, the kiss deepened into something that spoke of shared danger, mutual trust, and the beginning of something that might grow into love. They broke apart reluctantly, foreheads touching in the medical bay's soft lighting. Whatever happens next, Marcus whispered, whatever we discover about the academy or my sister or any of this, I want you to know meeting you, being here with Alpha Squadron, it's changed everything for me. Zara's smile was radiant, transforming her usually serious features into something breathtakingly beautiful. For me too, she admitted. I never thought I'd find someone who could see past the shadows. I don't want to see past them, Marcus said, brushing a strand of dark hair from her face. They're part of who you are, and who you are is extraordinary. Outside the medical bay's viewport, the nebula painted the darkness in swirling colors of purple and gold. But neither Marcus nor Zara noticed the cosmic beauty beyond the glass. They had found something more precious than stellar phenomena in each other. They had found the possibility of a future neither had dared to imagine. The Academy's mysteries could wait. Elena's revelations could wait. The galaxy's hidden wars and secret preparations could wait. For now, there was only this moment, this connection, this promise of something beautiful growing in the darkness between stars. But in the shadows beyond the medical bay, unseen observers made notes and updated files. The game was far more complex than either Marcus or Zara realized, and their growing bond had just become another factor in equations that spanned star systems. The real test of their love was yet to come.